Kathy? Okay, our chalice reading this morning is by, can everyone hear me? Okay.
Yes.
It's by Robin F. Gray. And it's entitled, We Prepare for the Future. By the light of this chalice, we prepare for the future. We prepare ourselves for the times of triumph and times of trial that might come. We prepare ourselves to be present to one another with loving hearts, even in the most difficult times. We prepare ourselves to make the connections that will lift us out of isolation and prepare the path of justice and equality.
Thank you. We'll take a moment for joys and concerns if there are any. No one has forwarded any to me yet, but you may have some. If not, we'll move on to announcements, and I have 3 announcements. The first is a little long, but from the program committee. The program committee has set a structure for programming through May. A team has been designated for each Sunday of the month, and themes have been set for each team. If you're interested in joining any of these teams, you are welcome, and you can begin by contacting our program chair, Rob Cook. Beginning in October, next week, the first Sunday of each month will focus on helping us to build a diverse, multicultural community and dismantling racism. The second Sunday in each month, we'll look at environmental, political, and social issues. The third Sunday of each month will feature programs having to do with art, music, and literature as themes. And the fourth Sunday will be dedicated to a study of our UU principles. There is also a plan to include 2 to 3 visits by a guest UU minister after the first of the year. As there are always exceptions, we'll start with October being our first exception, and we are switching the third and fourth Sundays due to Bobby and David being in Dublin. So anyway, the second announcement I have is that I hope you would make plans to visit the photography exhibit called Ghosts of Segregation. It's currently at the Lawrence Arts Center, and it will be there through December, and it's really a thought-provoking exhibit with really exquisite photographs. And finally, yes, next week we have voted to start with in-person programming, and there'll be more details coming about that later. So are there other announcements?
This is Carolyn. Just a pastoral care request. I am trying to find a ride for a member to a doctor appointment tomorrow at 2:30. I can do the pickup, but I am needing someone to do a drop off at 2:30. So if you're available, you can DM me and I'll give you the details. Thanks.
Thank you. Now we have some music, Lou.
You're muted, Kathy.
Kathy,
I can't hear.
Kathy, you're muted.
I'll start over. This song, What Have They Done to the Rain, written by Malvina Reynolds and sung here by Joan Baez, was originally written as part of a campaign to stop above ground nuclear testing. The testing was putting strontium-90 into the air where it was washed down by the rain, got into the soil, and thence to the grass, which was eaten by cows. When children drank the cow's milk, the strontium-90, which was chemically similar to calcium but radioactive, was deposited in their bones. Mothers saved their children's baby teeth and sent them in to be tested by scientists who confirmed that there were indeed elevated levels of strontium-90 in their teeth. Our babies' teeth, the activism of mothers and others, led to President Kennedy signing the treaty against above-ground testing a year after this song was written. The song asks, what have they done to the rain? But of course, they is us, and we are the ones with the responsibility to care for our environment, whether the issue is nuclear testing, plastic proliferation, cattle farms, coal plants, clean water. Thank goodness for activists who educate us about alternatives to the status quo and lead the way. One of those leaders, a lifelong educator and activist, is Tim Miller, our speaker today. He is a retired religious studies professor at KU, and he will give us a presentation on eco villages. Tim?
Okay, well, see, this is what technology gets us. So very sorry for all the mess. I've done this dozens of times on this computer with never a hitch. So what's wrong today? Have no idea. My apologies. Anyway, to proceed with what we're doing, I'm going to talk a bit and Lou is going to give us pictures. And I can't apparently see these pictures, right? So do you want to go ahead, Lou, and put the first slide up? But I can't see it. And I can't hear you either.
I see no slides.
No slide?
No slide.
I wish everyone would just be patient.
Oh, here we go, I think. Okay, there we are. See that?
Yes.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move on down, Lou, to the next slide, and I'll just say when to move it. Okay, we'll come back to this picture. Just want to say my interest in eco-villages stems, I think, from observing the really high commitment their members have in trying to make a difference environmentally. I think they make far more of a difference than most of us do with our what are really fairly limited efforts to improve things. I don't think eco-villages have all the answers, but I do think they're moving in the right direction. By most measures, they're reducing their carbon footprints by 50% or more. Twin Oaks Eco-Village in Virginia has tracked some of its resource use. Its use per capita of gasoline is 35% of the American average. Their electricity is 27% of average, natural gas 24%. Dancing Rabbit, one of the closest ones to us in Missouri, uses 6% of the per capita American consumption of gasoline, 18% of the electricity, most of which they generate, and 5% of the natural gas. Eco-Village at Ithaca, New York uses 39% of average electricity, 41% of natural gas, 22% of water. So that's an impact, a big impact. And on top of that, members are often activists for environmental social change. So that's what you see here. They do have gasoline, but they sure want to tell people not to get too attached to it. The Global Eco-Village Network now lists hundreds of such communities and promotes connections among them that people, each other, can learn. Next picture. Oops. Okay, well, we'll come to this. I thought we had a different one in there. But in Europe, the latest directory I have, there are 432 of them in Europe, and they're all doing in their various ways things to control their carbon footprints. No one can really date the beginning of the eco-village movement. Certainly, of course, concern for the environment is something that's been around for a long time, hence Pythagoras. Pythagoras had a little communal village in 6th century BCE Greece and Italy. He had various outposts, and he seems to have had some eco-village features there. Among other things, they ate a vegetarian diet. Next picture. Get another picture. Are you there, Lou? Well, I don't know. Where are we? And I presume you're all seeing what I'm seeing, which is still Pythagoras holding a pyramid, right?
Right.
Oh, there you are. Okay, next picture. Well, okay, not sure what we're doing here. Well, what are we doing? I don't know.
Unmute, Lou.
Lou, are you there?
You're muted, Lou.
Lou, if you're having trouble, can we switch over to Valerie's? She has the slides too.
Yeah, so I start sharing those. Here, I can bring those up. Here we go.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go on down a few pictures in the interest of time. I was going to make the point that medieval monasteries, in a sense, were eco-villages, very nearly self-sufficient, very low impact environmentally. Next picture. So the monks did a lot of work in addition to their prayer life. Convents, women's communities particularly, often had a medicinal focus to them. They were major medical centers in the Middle Ages. Next picture. And some people are trying to reenact that today in the city of Assisi in Italy, small city, of course, associated with St. Francis. There's a nature council trying to reduce the impact of the whole city. Next picture. But to jump to the U.S. and a little more recent version of things, I think in some ways this is one of the first eco-villages in the United States, Fruitlands, community in Massachusetts that had a low-impact lifestyle as early as the 1840s. They dressed entirely in linen because wool was an animal product and exploiting of animals. Cotton came from slavery, of course, so they tried to get away from their negative impacts. Bronson Alcott was one of the main leaders at Fruitlands, and his daughter, Louisa May Alcott, was a child there. And if you want to read a funny memoir of Fruitlands, look up Louisa May Alcott's essay, Transcendental Wild Oats. It's very clever. A little bit later in this century, the kibbutz movement came along. Oh yeah, and let's go on ahead. The kibbutz movement in Italy, it began in the early 20th century, consisted of a network of largely self-sufficient communities, and some of them today identify as eco-villages. So Kibbutz Lotan is located in the Negev Desert in the south of Israel, which is a really harsh environment, but they've pioneered ways of growing crops and making things work, even with extremely limited water resources and other resources. And there are other things on ahead. Little Landers in California, 1909, proposed that a 1-acre intensively farmed plot could support a family. Next picture. And they seemed to make it work fairly well until a flood came along and totally wiped them out. And that was the end of that Little Landers project. But there have been other things that have gone on more recently. Yes, Solheimar in Iceland, one of the earliest, founded in 1930. They pioneered organic farming and developed renewable energy sources. They also were involved in the Camp Hill movement, which mixes regularly abled and special needs people living together. There are around 100 of those Camp Hill villages today, and most of them have eco-village features. Okay, next. In 1962, another group of visionaries founded what has become a flagship of the eco-village movement, Findhorn in Scotland. Like several other eco-villages and the Camp Hill movement itself, Findhorn blended organic farming with spiritual principles. Among other things, the people of Findhorn claimed to be in touch with the nature divas, or spirits, we would say, that helped them grow the enormous vegetables by which they were first known. Next picture. This is not constructed. This is an actual photograph of early Findhorn vegetables. But there are other contributions to sustainability there, such as the repurposing of whiskey barrels, lots of those in Scotland, for housing, and they made an early commitment to alternative energy. This whiskey barrel house, this is the first one of several, built by an American there, Roger Doudna, who happens to be from Kansas. I went to KU with him and have been in touch with him ever since. Okay, Findhorn also has wind generators. These aren't quite as big as the ones you see in Kansas, but they're large, and they're generating their own power. So their impact is very, very minimal. Actually, they've done a great job of controlling it. So other places have made other contributions. By the late 1980s, the concept of sustainability was beginning to gain some traction. A woman named Hilda Jackson, who's there in the center little piece on the left, she's been active in the co-housing movement in her native Denmark from the beginning. And in 1987, she and her husband Ross, who's shown there and also in the next picture, founded the Gaia Trust. Next picture, a well-funded charity, and it did basically research and implementation of projects in sustainability. In 1990, they commissioned a report to serve as a roadmap toward a sustainable future when that language was just barely known. That report was undertaken by Robert and Diane Gilman, also sustainability pioneers, and their report was issued the following year. There's the cover of it. That really introduced the term eco-village to a wider audience and showed that sustainability wasn't just a vision of some impractical idealists, but was really at work in many places around the world. Next picture. So this network has come from that work. As I mentioned earlier, although sustainability is at the heart of the eco-village vision, they're centers of peace and nonviolence as well. They pursue a nonviolent vision in several ways by promoting peaceful interaction among members, using consensus decision making, and providing various means of nonviolent conflict resolution. They promote peaceful relations with neighbors and offer assistance in conflict resolution to their neighborhoods. And they produce demonstration projects that illustrate what a nonviolent world might look like. So I'd now like to look at several eco-villages that have been developed in the last few decades and discuss their ideas about both sustainability and nonviolence. I'll begin with two linked eco-villages, the Zeg community in Germany and Tamera in Portugal. This is the entrance to Zeg in Germany, and now we have an aerial view of it. Kind of a funny outcome for this building, these buildings that were built in the 1930s. This was used for equestrian training for the 1936 Olympics in Berlin. That ring toward the right was where they ran their horses around in a circle. After World War II, it was used by the East German Foreign Intelligence Service. You might think that's kind of a toxic background for an eco-village, but the Zeg founders transformed the site when they bought it. It had a founding principle of a devotion to nonviolence, and there's a whole philosophy that they have promoted. It also promotes healthy relationships, as they say, between men and women, or between men and women and women. But Zeg has confronted a lot of large public issues in contemporary society, and the people are activists for peace and justice at a high level in Germany. They produce their own heat sustainably and generate most of their electricity, and generally function as a large, well-functioning eco-village. Next picture. They also have what they call the forum, which is sort of a group communication and feedback process, and they consider that important to their way they make things work. They try to bring into the open thoughts and feelings that are often hidden, and claim to strengthen social relationships that way. There's a second community that is kind of an offshoot of Zeg, Tamera in Portugal, calls itself a peace research village, but also like Zeg, it's deeply involved in developing sustainable technologies and in work to improve human relationships. These are two of the leaders, Sabine Lichtenfels, who actually is a trained theologian, and Dieter Dumm, who's really the guiding philosopher of Tamera. So they founded that in a rather remote and poverty-stricken area of southern Portugal in 1995, and they've steadily grown. They now have a population of about 175. They've tried to heal the landscape and engage in healing people as well. An important project at Tamera is what they call the test field for the solar village. And this is part of the test field. This is a solar cooker. That mirror on the right focuses heat on that little box on the lower side of the building. I saw this work, and boy, in a couple of minutes, they can have, or less than that, almost seconds, I would say, they can have water boiling. It's a terrific concentrator of heat. And of course, no natural resource use other than the sun. They've also built buildings on these principles. Next picture, the aula, they call it, which is a large auditorium. You can see the green roof there. The building itself is built of straw bale. And it's not just a green roof, not just grass to shed the water, but they have a herbal garden up there and have a lot of their kitchen plants grown there. They also use the facility for peace education for young people. And it expands way beyond the eco-village itself, all across Europe. Another European eco-village in northern Europe, in northern Italy, is Damanhur, which again combines the organic with the spiritual, in this case what I would call New Age spirituality, though they don't like that word. I quit using it around them, at least. Founded in the 1970s, Damanhur sees itself as creating a whole new way of living. The most spectacular achievement of the citizens of what they call the nation of Damanhur is the underground temple, carved within a solid granite mountain. And we have, I think, 3 or 4 pictures of the temple. This is a map of it. This is a side view, and you go from one room to another. The Hall of Mirrors at the top is actually something you come to late in the tour, but there are various things. This whole temple is dug out of a solid granite mountain. They chipped it out by hand, rock by rock, and carried it out. And because it was all a secret, they had to carry the rock far away to dump it. Okay, next picture. And this is what they got. This is the underground temple, one of the many rooms in the temple. To me, just an absolutely stunning achievement that is there, and for many years was secret and unknown. Now it is public, and you can actually go take a tour of it. I think there are a couple more pictures of the temple here. Yeah, there's another room in the temple. Maybe one more. Oh, nope, we're moving to Australia. Okay, that's fine. Australia has a number of eco-villages. This is Currumbin, which is in southeastern Queensland. Planning for Currumbin began in the 1990s. They've been there now moved in since 2006. They now have a population of over 200, and members live in separate homes, but they come together in many common facilities, such as a community center, a library, and a playground. And as you can see, it's kind of a desert environment, and once again, they're carving great productivity out of the desert. We see the next one, sign kind of telling what some of the facilities are there. And it's still under construction, but don't forget where we are. It's Australia. They occasionally have these visitors. And a large portion of their land, I might say, is kept open, unused altogether. Just thinking that that's what we need to do to preserve land, quit using it. So that kind of land restoration is a pretty common feature in eco-villages everywhere. Next one of the most ambitious eco-villages anywhere is Gaviotas, which is in eastern Colombia. And it, like many others, combines ecological and social goals. The area where it's located is in what is really a war zone. This is where some of the drug wars are being fought. To travel there is so dangerous that very few outsiders manage to visit, unless you want to run into cocaine growers who aren't very friendly, or processors, insurgent guerrilla bands, military troops that fight them. Not a great area. They're seeking to promote peace in a really violent place. Began in 1971. When a team of engineers and scientists came together to develop a sustainable habitat and to promote nonviolence in the area. One of their major undertakings has been extensive tree planting, which next picture is really quite extensive, trying to restore a forest to things that have been cut down. Of course, we all know how the Amazon rainforest is being destroyed. Well, these people are trying to bring it back. They've planted so far about 1.5 million pine trees, and they're helping other long gone species return as well. And the trees are a major source of income to the community. Next picture. They use them to produce resin and turpentine, things like that, as a business. They also have creative work in sustainable energy. Next picture. Small windmills, many of them in the community. And they have creative ways of pumping clean water out of the ground. Next picture. This is one of the pumps. Let the children play and pump all at once. Gaviotas is really ambitious, and against terrible odds, they are moving it forward. Many eco-villages seek to restore degraded land, but one is working to restore an entire village. Torre Superiore in northwestern Italy near the French border dates to the Middle Ages, but it was slowly abandoned in a kind of a general decrease in population in the economically depressed province of Liguria. In 1989, a new group of visionaries decided to restore Torre Superiore as an eco-village, and the work's been in progress for over 20 years. In fact, they tell me they're just about done now. As with other eco-villages, the work's been conducted with a careful attention to ecological building practices and the development of sustainable energy systems. Next picture. This is one piece of their heating plan. Hydronic heat, solar generated, and then rather inconspicuously put in the walls. The group right now, last I knew, has about 30 members, mostly Italians, a few Germans, and they support the project with an ecotourism business. So if you want to see it up tight, up close, you can. Go to one of their many courses or seminars. Others in other places. This is a Brazilian eco-village that also supports itself with ecotourism. This is the Associação Ambientalista in Florianópolis, Santa Catarina, Brazil. It's one of several eco-villages loosely grouped as Santo Daime communities because in addition to being committed to the same principles we see in other eco-villages, they're focused on the production and use of ayahuasca. Normally that's taken in the form of tea, and they understand it to be a divine being that lives in the tea. You drink the tea, you will have your inner divinity revealed. Gathering the plants to make the tea is an important community ritual, and whether all of the people who come to visit and pay them to visit do it for high spiritual purposes or not, I'm not sure, but they're quite devoted to environmental preservation and human communication and understanding. Okay, but back in the U.S., by my count, I can identify about 70 of them in the U.S. today. In the North Carolina, there's Earth Haven. It's in the Appalachians, in the western part of the state of North Carolina. Next picture. So this is Earth Haven. They do run conferences as one of their many community businesses and have, as you can see, quite a few facilities there. Next picture. This is one of the houses at Earth Haven. Once again, an organic roof, and they call it a Hobbit house. Next one. And a central cafe where a lot of their conference activity goes on. One of the closest ones to us, Dancing Rabbit in northeastern Missouri. Let's look at that. Next picture. It's near a little town called Rutledge in a fairly low population part of Missouri. Next picture. There's a map of what they are doing. And as I read off earlier, some of their environmental consumption features, they have reduced their impact on the environment enormously in design and construction and everything they do. Next one. This is one of the main squares. They have several different sub-communities grouped around a plaza like this. So this is Sky House Pod, they call it. When you see the solar panels and the solar panels on all the buildings there. Next picture. Many of their buildings use cob. I don't know if some of you are probably familiar with cob. It's kind of a combination of dirt and straw and some natural elements, and it actually works quite well. It does have to be protected from moisture, so you better get a good roof on it. One more in there. This is one recently under construction at Dancing Rabbit. These are earth bags. Just simply a bag that is filled with dirt. That's all. Build a building out of it. Actually quite durable. Works quite well. Once again, you need a good roof on it. So that's earth bags. In the Arizona desert, another place is something very different, a grand model, Arco Santi, founded by an Italian man named Paolo Soleri in the 1970s. This is a model of it. It's not nearly done yet, but parts of it are done. And it's understood to be a town of several thousand people when it's done, and with very advanced environmental features. Next one. So this is Arcosanti. These are things that are actually done today. These alcoves, arched alcoves, are carefully designed to take in solar energy under certain conditions and to block it out. This is the Arizona desert, after all. Block it out when needed. So this is what it looks like. I think we have one more of Arcosanti. Yeah, that's kind of what the whole thing looks like. And once again, they support themselves in significant part with tourism. So if you want to go on an eco-village tour, this is a place you can go and stay. In Tennessee, at a community called The Farm that's been there since 1971, is the Eco-Village Training Center. When they decided to adopt eco-village features, they decided they needed to learn how to do it. And they discovered a lot of other people were interested as well. So they now have regular courses in how to build an eco-village, mainly populated by college students. Next picture. So they show them how to do a lot of these typical eco-village things. How do you build a straw cabin? Well, unless, in case you don't wonder what this is, there it's labeled. Next picture. You saw earth bags a couple of pictures back at Dancing Rabbit. Well, this is an earth bag building at the Farm Eco-Village Training Center. This is earth bags, and then it's got stucco covering it, and there you are, a good durable building. This is their sewage lagoon, and the main structural elements here are tires. What do you do with used tires? They're actually very hard to recycle, and that's why you have to pay a fee to get rid of them. But here's a use for them, and this actually cleans their sewage very well. After going through a bunch of channels here, water comes out virtually clean. Okay. This is a building there at the Eco-Village Training Center, and you can see the passive solar heat. Okay, next picture. And their garden, of course, an organic garden, always a feature of an eco-village. Okay. Can you do it in cities? They're almost all in the boondocks. Can you do it in town? Well, yes, you can. A bold woman named Lois Arkin has been working for years to develop one right in downtown Los Angeles. And this is the Los Angeles Eco-Village. Another picture there. Again, the garden that is so important to eco-village living, they've got it right there in the city, functioning well and producing quite a bit of food as well as flowers. And they've done some nice decorative work. There's a picture next of that. Nice lizard bench there. So to me, that's pretty ambitious, and Lois Arkin has devoted her life to it, and it seems to be on its way. How far it'll go, we don't know. Yeah, moving north, Laytonville, town up in Redwood Country in Northern California. They have built an oven out of cob when they do much of their cooking in this oven. And they've used cob pretty extensively in the eco-village that's still in fairly early stages out there, but coming along. Next one. Near Eugene, Oregon is Lost Valley. They've got several hoop houses so that they can garden year-round, and a very productive garden out there. And one more, Port Townsend, Washington has an eco-village, and again, all the features that you've seen elsewhere. One of their artists drew this picture of it. So I would just say eco-villages seek to preserve our environment, but also to improve human relations and seek world peace. Pretty idealistic, I'd say, but can we really produce without the kind of social dreaming that is utopianism? I think we need it. So thank you. That's it. And sorry to take so long getting going.
Tim, do we have time to take some questions? Are there questions or comments?
Well, we've gone plenty long.
I assume that none of all these eco villages mean that they don't eat meat. Is that right?
I would say generally not unless maybe they've deliberately raised it or hunted it or something, but no, generally not. I don't recall ever seeing any meat at any that I've visited.
Well, thank you for hanging in there with us, Tim. I have the closing words that you provided for us, and so I'll go ahead and read that.
Okay, well, thank you all. And I'm very sorry
Thank
again
you.
for all the delay. Thank you.
Great
Thank you.
program.
Nice
Okay.
job.
Great program.
Rachel Carson writes, the question is whether any civilization can wage relentless war on life without destroying itself and without losing the right to be called civilized. So,
Okay, thank you. Have a good day.
Great.
Thank you.
thank you.
I just want to say that this has been recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel.
Oh,
I
great,
post
okay.
that information in the Facebook, on our Facebook group. And that'll be up probably this evening. If anybody
Thank you,
wants to see it
David,
again.
Lou, and Valerie
Yeah.
for saving the day. And we'll see you all in person next week at UUFT.
Great,
Okay,
great program, Tim. Great.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
program.